Everybody, my name is Eric Hopkins and welcome to my YouTube channel. If you're finding me for the very first time, please click that like and subscribe button and don't forget to hit the notification bell so you get all the notifications about when I put up new content here on my channel. So I want to do a quick review of Star Wars The Bad Batch Season 1 Episode 5 entitled Rampage. And don't worry, I won't be going into any spoilers here. I'll definitely make sure I hit the spoiler warning before I go into any spoilers about the episode. So if you've not seen the show yet, you can rest assured I will not be spoiling anything for you before I warn you first. I felt that this show, it feels, I mentioned it last week on my last week's episode, it feels like The Bad Batch is definitely taking some cues from The Mandalorian here. We have what appears to be yet another side mission where they have to land and, of course, do a side mission to get to the next place they need to go. And it's something that The Mandalorian has done in spades over its last few seasons here. And it seems like The Bad Batch is taking those cues. And like I said, Dave Filoni is one of the, writers and producers and directors on both series. So it makes some sense to kind of go that direction, I guess, because if it ain't broke, don't fix it, I suppose. But the problem is you're going to get to the point where fans are going to be like, all right, here we go again, just another one of these episodes. So in that regard, I understand if there's some people who maybe didn't care for it. But otherwise, I thought it was actually a fun little episode. You get to see a lot more of Omega's resourcefulness in this show, obviously, and how she's able to help the crew when they need her help for a change. And I like the character progression, too, from last week's episode where she got lost after being on the run from bounty hunter Fennec Shand, voiced by the brilliant Ming-Na Wen. I like how they kind of progressed that character in case that were to happen again, what she would maybe do in the future. And obviously she found a little bit of a trinket later on that might help her in such situations, which I'll get into in my spoiler section here. Also, just the whole idea of the mission that they had to do in this one to kind of, get some, credits and, some food or whatnot. They were obviously looking for, this isn't a spoiler, but they were looking to find out who the bounty hunter was that was chasing them, trying to find intel on this character that they don't know who it was, and maybe to find out what she wanted or who she was hired by and who wants Omega of this bounty here. I think that where it's going, it's a slow burn, which I like in series like this. I don't want to be told everything right up front. I like to be, wait and see where it goes slowly but surely. You get a little bit of information here and there, and then at the end, bam, you get the whole story, So I can't wait for that at the end of this season. But it's still a few months away. I believe this season is going to run through either the middle of August or all the way through August. So we've got a lot of episodes still to come in this season. But again, you do the slow burn, and when we get to that point, it's going to be a good payoff altogether. And of course, we get little teases about, possibly, how are the Bad Batch going to eventually, deal with the fact that they're going to have to eventually confront their former compadre in Crosshair at some point. That's going to be a thing. Crosshair, again, not in this episode. Not a real major spoiler or anything like that. It's just kind of, he's not in this one. Of course, they're trying to focus more on the group that is with Omega at this point, with Hunter, Wrecker, Tech, and Echo. I couldn't remember all their names. It's a lot to remember there. But they're obviously focusing on those relationships right now, building them up, and we'll eventually cross back around to Crosshair. So see what I did there. So I thought this was a fun little episode. Again, the mission that they have to go on, the child or whatever, that they end up having to go after here was very interesting to see that here. But again, that's not a spoiler. You'll find out once you've seen the episode what I'm talking about here. And I got a little bit to discuss about that in my spoiler episode. But again, a good little show. I can't wait till we get more into the meat and potatoes of where we're going with the Kaminoans and Tarkin and the clones in general and what they're going to do about that entire situation. I can't wait to see more about that. But for every now and then, you're going to get these episodes where it's just kind of like, all right, it's a side mission. But I believe they're going to be laying those details in every week to expand and go forward to where you get to the main narrative before the season's out. So with that being said, I want to get a little bit into the spoilers here. So I'm going to hit the spoiler alert. And if you've not seen the episode, please stop this video right now. Come back and check it out again after you've seen it, and then we'll get in all the stuff going forward with all the spoilers and all the goodies. So definitely check that out after you've done and watched the episode. Okay, so this episode definitely centered around the fact that they had to go do, like I said, this other mission to kind of get intel, and they meet up with this character named Sid, who apparently used to work with the Jedi and, of course, has all this knowledge. And I got to admit, by the end of this episode, I thought she was kind of shady, and we're going to see if she can keep her secret as she claimed to do to Hunter at the end of this episode. So we'll see how well that pans out for them. That she may end up turning on them at some point if she finds out, why they're so valuable and things like that, and why the bounty is on their head. But obviously they go to Sid to try to figure out who the bounty hunter was that was trying to get Omega in last week's episode, and Fennec Shan. And of course she said she'll give them intel if they are able to do something for her, which is something the Mandalorian does in spades all the time. Mandalorian's like, all right, I need to do this. I need to get the kid here. I need to get Grogu to this place. But then he'll come across somebody's like, all right, I'll help you. You help me first. And, it happens all the time in the Mandalorian. And it's happening almost every week now in the Bad Batch, that something comes up where this crew has to land on an unknown planet, or they have to do something for someone that they come across in order to get to where they need to go. So it's a trope that's starting to become a little repetitive in Star Wars. I hope it doesn't stick to that at all times throughout this entire series. Otherwise, it is going to get rather old. And there's going to be Star Wars fans who start to complain more if that continues. I think for now, it's okay. They're just starting out slow. But eventually, we're going to have to move into other stories in this series, I believe, especially when it comes to the Omega character and Hunter, too. You don't want to get that father-child relationship going on too much, even though Star Wars has done that throughout its entire series. So I don't know if you want to change that a whole lot, because, again, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But the mission that Sid sends them on is to save a child, Moochie. And you find out later, after the Bad Batch attempt to rescue this child on their own, after they get taken by the what was the name of the planet here? The slave owners that were in the Clone Wars make an appearance here. I can't remember the name of the planet or the species, but anyway, these slave owners that Anakin and Ahsoka come into contact with in the Clone Wars, the same species here are trying to round up slaves again in this series. And of course, that's obviously a political narrative that, they're trying to tell a story around here. And of course, the Bad Batch try to go free some slaves, as well as the child that Sid sends them to go find. And they end up getting captured. So Omega, who has been staying at the ship by herself, she ends up trying to go save them. And in the process, she releases a young, I think that was kind of like a teenager version of a Rancor monster that we originally saw in Return of the Jedi, when Luke Skywalker, ended up killing that Rancor at Jabba's palace. Now, I got to admit, when I first saw this episode, I'm sitting there, and especially by the end of this episode, when you find out that Sid is trying to get this Rancor back to deliver to Bib Fortuna, the handler of Jabba the Hutt. So I thought this was the origin story of how that Rancor ended up at Jabba's palace in Return of the Jedi. But apparently that is not the case. I was dead wrong on that, even though that could almost be your headcanon if you prefer it that way. We'll probably never see this Rancor again. To me, it felt like it was the same Rancor, but apparently it's not. According to the internet here, I guess we can go. I'll show you this here right quick if I can do this without screwing up too much here. Okay, so this Rancor here that was in the episode, apparently this article talks about how it is not the same Rancor that Luke killed on Tatooine. This Rancor's name is Moochie, but apparently the Rancor that was in episode 6 was called Patissa. And that Rancor obviously was totally different, so Luke kills him. So we don't know the fate of Moochie here, but the Patissa was the name of the Rancor in that movie, who famously tries to make lunch out of Luke Skywalker roughly 18 or 19 years after the events of this current Bad Batch episode. What's more, though, Patissa is a male, which Moochie is female, a teenage female Rancor who, yes, might be age-appropriate enough to be slotted into Patissa's role as Luke's titanic adversary, but is still a totally different Rancor nonetheless. So yeah, so no fear here. Don't worry about it. It's not the same Rancor. But again, I thought that it might have been the case. And in my head canon, I might leave it that way. Just kind of like, hey, we finally know how the Rancor got to Jabba's palace. So that's a fun little tidbit here. But outside of that, this episode I thought was, a lot of fun. It had a lot of things in it that obviously gave us clues about to where some of the characters are going. It definitely hinted at some of their fates here, especially with Wrecker once again holding his head like it's really hurting him. But he claimed a few episodes ago, it came from the crash that they sustained. But it's clearly going to be more like a symptom of his malfunctioning inhibitor chip that should have gone off for Order 66, but for whatever reason, like they said, they weren't wired the same way. But I got a feeling, where's that character going to go with that little bit of a story element there thrown in? Obviously, also earlier on, I mentioned Omega. She acquired a crossbow from the slave owners in this episode. So she's got a little bit of a weapon now to go along with the one thing I really liked that they gave her at the beginning of the episode was a communicator on her arm. So if she gets lost again, she can call for help from the Bad Batch and Hunter and all the crew. So I liked that was a good character development there. So they didn't just like leave her to be. So if in case it happens again, they didn't change, maybe what they could do to prevent it. So I thought that was really good storytelling to expand upon that. And the crossbow, like I said, she can use that in dangerous situations now. So she's kind of like Ezra in Star Wars Rebels a little bit. She's advanced her weaponry a little bit, so she's able to defend herself, and so maybe she'll become a more formidable member of the crew the older she gets here. The more as this series goes on, and of course, Hunter also found it pretty easy, looked like, to take a suitcase full of credits after a hard day's work as a hired gun. So could he maybe be bordering on the lines of becoming a bounty hunter himself at some point? That's also an interesting story element that I'd like to see them pull the thread on, and we'll see where they go with that and how that might, strike some of his fellow compadres and his team and see how that works out with their relationships as well. So I don't know. It's kind of interesting. There's a lot of little things that they throw in here and there that could pay off down the road, and that is one of the things I really like about the way Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau tell stories in The Mandalorian and some of the other Star Wars shows that they do. And Filoni and Favreau, I trust. I know Favreau's not involved in this particular animated show here, but Filoni knows what he's doing. He hasn't let me down before in Clone Wars or in Star Wars Rebels. So I have all the faith in the world here that he's going to get this right as well. And it was really nice to see Bib Fortuna at the end of this as well. So nice little callback. And of course, we just saw his demise at the end of Mandalorian Season 2. So again, it was just kind of cool to see that little Easter egg in there, which again, we may get a little bit more about Boba Fett in the series. I'd still kind of like to maybe see that, but I don't know if they're going to go that route. Well, we'll see what they do. And then maybe if he ever meets up with Fennec Shand beforehand or whatnot, before he saves her life on Tatooine, which I erroneously got wrong in, I believe, my last week's review of this show. He never met her, probably. He might have met her during the Bad Batch, like I said here, but I don't. When she talks about how Boba Fett saved her life, it was clearly after she was shot in Mandalorian Season 1, so I got that part wrong, so I apologize for my error on that. But it's fun to speculate. I hope Boba Fett shows up in this. I'd love to see more of her relationship, or his relationship with Fennec Shand, and maybe it's a years-old relationship that they rekindled later on in the series, but I don't know. That's just my personal fan theory. But anyway, as for this show, I think it was a good little episode. Again, we'll see where they go with all this, and it was nice little callbacks to the Clone Wars with the Zygerians, the slave traders. That's what they were called. So yes, the Zygerians. So a good little callback to the species and stuff that they've used before, and I love how this series and Star Wars in general likes to throw in species that they've used in multiple other locations. But the real question is here, guys, what do you guys think about Star Wars The Bad Batch Season 1, Episode 5, Rampage? Comment down below. Let me know. And don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button. And don't forget to hit the notification bell so you get all the notifications about when I put up new content here on my channel. And until my next video, guys, take care. We about to turn it on.